are smiling on now. Put me in the dark, but won't get lost now. To the moonlight, eyes you are real right now. You look into my eyes and felt a feeling that nothing got it feel like a slim night. Hey, come on closer. Now I'm waiting for you, but don't hurry, oh slowly. Oh yeah, the moon is around us. You look into my eyes, together feel so high. To make a way the twilight.
Good morning to all respected teachers, staff, and students which are present here. I considering to all of you know about this program going from last 2 days, and today is the last day of the program, 21st August. And every year of this day, our college celebrate the death anniversary of late Rajabhau Kadam, founder president of Hanuman Shikshan Prasarak Mandal Sonpet, which is working for the goal reaching to the unreached. This lecture series is organized by Chief Organizing Committee, Department of Zoology, late Ramesh Varpudkar College, Sonpet, Department of Zoology, Kalika Devi ACS College, Shirur, Kasar District, Bid, and Vivek Vahini, which is affiliated to Andhashraddha Nirmulan Samiti, Sonpet. Dr. V.D. Satpute sir and Dr. S.K. Tupe sir both are principals of respected colleges. I am going to introduce today's resource person and chief guest who is working as the technical officer at National Institute of Animal Biotechnology, Hyderabad. I request to our today's chief guest, Mr. Shashikant Gavai sir, guide us about current technique in biotechnology.
Good morning, everyone. Hope I am audible to all of you. It's an honor to be a part of this 3-day lectures series jointly organized by Department of Zoology, led Ramesh Varpudkar Arts, Commerce and Science College, Sonpet, and Department of Zoology, Kalika Devi Arts, Commerce and Science College, Sirpur. I congratulate the organizers, Dr. Tupe sir and Dr. Satpute sir, for organizing such a wonderful event to spread awareness of scientific temper. My special thanks to Dr. Rankham sir for his invitation to be a part of this event. Last 2 days, you have listened to different lectures, one of by Dr. Patil sir and Dr. Boite sir. So today I am going to talk. About techniques in biotechnology. It's a very vast subject, but I will try my best to cover up the basic of this biotechnology part and importance techniques in my current talk. So let's start with, what is biotechnology? So biotechnology is, in simple term, you can call it as a combination of biology and technology. So biotechnology is a technology that utilizes the biological system, living organisms or part of this, to develop or create different products intended to improve the quality of human life. So which is currently rapidly developing because of its new possibilities to make changes in an organism, that is a genetic material called DNA. This term biotechnology was first coined by a Hungarian agriculture engineer called Karl Erki in 1990. So we'll go through the history of biotechnology. So science, technology and society are very closely associated with each other. It enhances our understanding of the way in which advances in science and technology influences the society and vice versa. So biotechnology, it dates back several thousands years when people accidentally discovered the usefulness of organisms like yeast and bacteria. If you see the ancient Egyptian, they used yeast to brew beer and bake a bread. Around some 7,000 years ago, in Mesopotamia, people used the bacteria to convert wine into vinegar. So what is this acetic acid bacteria? Because acetic acid bacteria is a group of gram-negative bacteria which oxidizes sugar or ethanol and produce the acetic acid during the fermentation. Were first recognized as a causing wine spoilage in the 19th century. Their ability to oxidize ethanol to acetic acid is vital for inducing a wine spoilage and commercial products of vinegar. So if you see look into history of biological discoveries which leads to empowerment of society, in 1663, Robert Hooke described the cell that has ultimately given a way to many today's scientific advancement. In 1675, Leeuwenhoek discovered the protozoa and the bacteria, which opened up the entire world of microscopic life to the awareness of scientists. In 1855, E. coli bacteria discovered by Theodor Escherichia, and biotechnology leaped forward in 1865, where the father of genetics, that is Gregor Mendel, announces his belief that there were a unit of heredity, later called genes, which did not change their identity from the generation to generation, but it only recombined to the next generation. The science of genetics was born in 1906. The molecular biology techniques which improves knowledge of genetics, scientists are now able to create a genetic or transgenic organism that have a specific character. So one of the best example of this discovery was the insulin. So now in 2021, we are celebrating 100 years since the discovery of insulin, which is discovered by Frederick Banting and Charles Best in 1921 in University of Toronto. So which went on saving this the great medical breakthrough, in which it went on saving the millions of lives around the world and triggered a century of diabetic discoveries. The discovery in the 1953 of double helix structure by Watson and Crick given a milestone in the history of science and give rise to a modern molecular biology, which is largely concerned with understanding how genes control the chemical process within the living cells or living being. Over the course of several years, the Marshall, Narenberg, Hargovin Khurana, and Savido Chow and their colleagues elucidated the genetic code showing how nucleic acid with the later 4 alphabets determines the order of 20 kinds of different amino acids, that is amino proteins. This is the discovery for the changing in the process of amino acid, which is, the guanine, cytosine, thymine, and adenine. So basically, biotechnology refers generally to the application of wide range of scientific techniques to the modification of improvement of plants and animals and microorganisms that are economically important. One among the major of this focus is the DNA technology. Includes that is genetic technology, that is genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is the process of using a recombinant DNA, that is, and you can call it rDNA technology, to alter a genetic makeup of an organism. Traditionally, humans have manipulated genomes indirectly by controlling the breeding and selecting the offspring with the desired trait. So life-saving discovery of insulin is one of the best example for genetic engineering. Genetically modified plants such as BT cotton, Dolly the sheep developed by the cloning. These are the few other examples. So here in this slide you can see how the insulin they have created. They have taken the human cells and they from the insulin gene they took it from and took the plasmid from the bacteria. They recombined this insulin gene into plasmid and transformed into the bacteria and grown in the lab, and that's how they extracted the insulin. So this is the major life-saving discovery in the biotechnology through the genetic engineering. So next is technique is called PCR, that is polymerase chain reaction. PCR is another widely used DNA manipulation techniques, one with the application in almost every area of modern biology. PCR reaction produce many copies of targeted DNA sequence starting from a piece of template DNA. This technique can be used to make a many copy of DNA that is present in a trace of amount, like a droplet of blood in the crime scene. This can be used like to find out in a forensic lab to find out the criminals. So specific target sequence of DNA the found in a very low level in the sample can be amplified in a millions copy to use the further manipulation, either in a scientific field like gene cloning and DNA fingerprinting or a genetic screening. So these are the PCR is having major 3 stages. That is one denaturation, that is the DNA helix to be single stranded. Then second stage is the annealing primers, that is one specific to each end will be targeted the DNA sequence, and third will be the extension of new stranded DNA, which will be used by heat tolerant DNA polymerase in the reaction, which is isolated from thermophilic bacteria. So next is gene cloning. So this is also most important technique in biotechnology. In DNA cloning, the researchers clone make a many copy of DNA fragment of interest, such as a gene. In many cases, DNA cloning involves inserting a targeted gene into circular DNA molecule called a plasmid, as I explained in the insulin example, how they have done it. The plasmid can be replicated in the bacteria, making many copies of the gene of interest. In some cases, the gene is also expressed in a bacteria, making many copies of a gene of interest. In some cases, which will be expressed in a for making of a protein, as I given an example of insulin. So the question will be, how is DNA cut at a known sites? So there are restrictions enzymes used for cutting a DNA. So restriction enzymes are DNA cutting enzymes. Each enzyme recognizes one or a few target sequence and cut DNA at a nearby those sequence. So many restriction enzymes make suggested cuts, produce ends with a single stranded DNA overhangings. However, sometimes it produces the blunt ends. So there is called enzyme DNA ligase, which is a DNA joining enzyme. If two pieces of DNA have matching ends, ligase can link them to form a single unbroken molecule of DNA. In DNA cloning, restriction enzyme and DNA ligase are used to insert the gene and other pieces of DNA into the plasmid. So next question will be, how do we know which area should be cloned or which gene should be cloned? So there are two different ways of doing it. So one, either clone all the genome fragment and find that what you want for your library, or keep it in the library and you can use it, that genome library, later for your work. Or you can choose a desired DNA fragment before cloning. So next technique is gel electrophoresis. This is very old techniques used in routine labs. So gel electrophoresis is a laboratory method. Use the separate mixture of DNA, RNA or protein according to the molecular size. Gel electrophoresis, that is for DNA fragment, different size can be separated by electrical field applied to the gel. And the negatively charged DNA fragments runs away away from the negatively electrode and to the positive electrode. The negatively charged DNA migrate away from the negative electrode and the positive electrode. The smallest, the fragment that faster in a migrates, and the migration also depend on the concentration of the gel prepared to determine the pore size also. So here you can see there are two gels I have kept it. One is agarose gel electrophoresis, that is the upper one. The lower portion is SGS phase, which is the protein running. So this even pore size is nothing but the concentration of your acrylamide gel, which is SGS phase, and agarose gel, for this is the DNA. So that percentage also matters, because according to the percentage of gel, the pore size will be different. So next sequence, we move to the next slide, which is the most important technique in the biotechnology, is the DNA sequencing. A DNA sequencing is very much important as a scientific instrument. This is a DNA sequencer is a scientific instrument used to automate the DNA sequencing process. So given a sample of DNA, that is a DNA sequencer used to determine the order of 4 bases, which is guanine, cytosine, adenine and thymine. This is considered as an optical instrument which analyzes the light signal originating from the fluorochrome attached to the nucleotides. It is used the Sanger sequencing method, a technology which forms the basic of the first generation of DNA sequencer that enabled the completion of the Human Genome Project in 2001. But there are limitations in this DNA sequencing technique. The reads of this reads of this one is very short, and the length of genome therefore must be assembled in a longer sequence. So because this sequence reads of sequence are very short, and you cannot sequence for the larger genome. So to overcome with this shortening of Sanger sequencing, now we have a next generation sequence that is called NGS. So NGS is a massively parallel sequencing technology that offers the ultra high throughput, scalability and speed. The technology is used to determine the order of nucleotides in an entire genome or targeted region of DNA or RNA. This NGS has revolutionized the biological sciences, allowing labs to perform a wide variety of applications and study biological systems at level never before possible. So the question will be what this NGS can do for us. So it has a wide range of applications in the science field. So like rapidly sequencing a whole genome. So like whatever the Human Genome Project, it took some more than 10 years to complete that entire Human Genome Project. But now with this NGS technique, we can finish it very fast. So it can be done deep sequencing target region, as well as it can utilize the RNA sequencing to discover the novel RNA variants and splice sites of RNA. Even you can quantify mRNAs for gene expression analysis. These are very much techniques in use in the routine molecular biology lab. For you guys will be to understand this depth will not be. I have to take one more lecture for it. So anyway, I will give the brief about it. So again, this NGS can be used for analyzing the epigenetic factors such as DNA methylation, DNA protein interaction. Even this is most importantly, we can use it for medical research also for sequence the cancer sample to study the rare somatic variants or tumor subclones. And even we can identify the novel pathogen also through the NGS. Today's complex genomic questions demand a depth of information beyond the capacity of traditional DNA sequencing technology. So that NGS has filled the gap and become an everyday tools to address these major questions. So move on to the next techniques, which is the Western blotting. So Western blotting is a laboratory technique generally used for detecting a specific protein molecule from among a mixture of proteins. So what we do in the lab is take a cell culture or cells, lyse them in a buffer, that is lysis buffer, and denature with the denaturing buffer, or we can take it in a SDS, sodium rhodocyl sulfate, and beta-mercaptadinol, and we can heat it for 95 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes, and that can be run on electrophoresis gel that I previously told you that SDS phase and agarose. So here we use the SDS phase vertical electrophoresis. So we load this denatured protein in the lysate of cells on the electrophoresis apparatus, and then once it's transferred on the separated on the gel, we make a cassette or a sandwich with the membrane, and which could be transferred with the giving the two cathode electrodes like cathode and anode in between that with the sandwich, where the protein will be transferred from the gel to the membrane. The later part we will use that membrane for analyzing the different protein, which will be blocked by a different protein or a milk, DFAT milk or BSA. Then this will be analyzed with the primary antibody for incubating around 1 hour and or overnight, and we can perform the detection of this with the secondary antibody. This is the technique called Western blotting. So next come the flow cytometry. This is a very advanced and important techniques in majorly in the medical sciences, and obviously in basic research like my institute we have these 3 different machines. This is whatever the picture I have kept it is a model called ARIA3 from BD Biosciences. So this is a flow chart how exactly the facts work. Actually, flow cytometry is a technique which enables the rapid analysis of statistically significant number of cells at a single cell level. The main principle of this technique is based on scattering of light and emission of fluorescence, which occurs when the laser beam hits the cells moving in the fluid stream. So as I have mentioned in a figure here, so this is called the flow cell. So cells will move through these flow cells guided with the SIT fluid. So this blue color line you can see for a schematic diagram I have showed you, the SIT fluid is nothing but the buffer to run your sample. So there is a laser this side, laser will hit the cell. If it has a label like I showed it here, the cell will be stained with the fluorescent dye which runs through the flow cell, which hits with the laser. If it having the dye, it gets scattered light which will be detected by this detector, that is a side scatter detector, which can detect the fluorescent and granularity of the cell. And other detector, if that is not having any fluorophore, so that will be detected by a detector called forward scattering detector. And here the cell size and health, whether it is a dead cell or size of a cell, can be detected in this detector, that is FSC detector. So as this cell gets excited, which can be later charged with there will be the two electromagnetic plates just end of this flow cell, which will be charged based on the signal. If the protein or dye has got excited with the laser, that will be given the negative charge, and it will be separate out from the other population. So negatively sample will be separated out on 1, and positively charged sample will be 1. The neutral will be go to the west in the middle. So this is the flow of this schematic presentation of how this flow cytometry works. So there are a major application of this flow cytometry. So there are vast, as I told you, in a medical field, this is a very much importance. So in phenotyping, we use this one. Using a fluorescence conjugate antibody directed toward the proteins of interest, which express the different protein, and the surface and intracellular may be detected on the flow cell. The specific cell types may be distinguished within the mixture of population using the multiple fluorescence conjugated antibody. Then again we can use this for apoptotic studies also. The several flow cytometry method to detect the apoptosis are variable. So sometimes we use Inexin V or 7-ADD. These are the dyes we use for apoptosis analysis. Then we can analyze the cell cycle also. So the fixed cells are stained with the dye that is called propydium iodide, ethidium bromide, or DAPI. These are the 3 different dyes which binds to nucleus. So in this study we can use the cell cycle analysis, in which stage of these cells are there. Again we can use this flow cytometry in the, as I mentioned in the schematic diagram, to sorting out the different cells based on the different stain or whatever the properties of the cells. So even the most important feature about this one also in the day-to-day lab is whether you want to see the live or dead bacterial discrimination. So in this one you can give the stain with a thiazole or orange dye, which can binds to the whether cell is live or dead. We can use that dye and separate out live cells and dead cells separately from this flow cell. So next is my technique is microscopy, which is one of my best one, and I loved it, and from several years I am working on this microscope. So microscopy is a technique field of using a microscope to view object and the area of object that cannot be seen with the naked eyes. So these are 3 branches of microscope, that is optical microscope, then laser based microscope, and electron microscope. So the smallest object that the human cannot see, that we can observe under the microscopes. So what human eye can see is around 1 mm long. So if you see this diagram, so mouse is around 10 centimeter, then 1 mm. So from 0.1 nanometer till 10 centimeter, it's a wide range of biological organisms. So in this one, I have kept this one figure here, where one added human eye, how much you can see. So from 10 meters to approximately 1 millimeter till frog egg, or with using some magnifying glass, we can see the human egg. But later from 1 mm to approximately somewhere 50 micrometer, we can use light microscopes. So from 1 micrometer till say 10 nanometer, so we can use a super resolution microscope. So for electron microscopy, there is a wide range from 100 micrometer to 1 nanometer. Even further, there are very advanced techniques are recently coming with the electron microscopy, which can again narrow down that range till 0.1 nanometer. So there are, as I told you, there are different types of microscopy. So as a schematic diagram, I have kept it for a confocal microscope, which is laser based microscope, and wide field fluorescent microscope, which is lamp-less microscope. So here, how the path of light comes, there will the focal plane will be here. Light source hits the sample, it reflects with the mirrors, and it will be amplified. The signal will be amplified in the multiplier tube, and images will be visualized in the screen. As these are the example of different microscopes. So first one is a fluorescent microscope. Second one is a laser confocal microscope. Third one is super resolution microscope, and fourth is the electron microscope. Here I have given the pictures how fluorescence microscopes looks and how the difference between the images. So if you see the fluorescence microscope, you can see the structure but not in the details. So some hazy structure is there. But if you go to the laser confocal microscope, so you can see the little more clarity. In super resolution microscope, you can find out the microtubules separated from each other. So that is very much clear. Even in the super resolution microscope, you can see the protein-protein interaction under this microscope. So this is the electron microscope. What I have pictured is called transmission electron microscope. But this photo, whatever I kept it is for the SEM, that is a scanning electron microscope. These are some pollen grains shown in this one. So this is the one of the best technique in biological sciences. So this comes to my part of the last slide. So I just wanted to take opportunity to talk about my institute. I worked in the National Institute of Animal Biotechnology, which is located in Hyderabad. So we have very interesting opportunities for the students to get into touch with us or build up your career in the science field. So especially NIAB have the bridge program where our scientists go to the colleges, local level schools, and give the talks about scientific discoveries, and depending on the school or college. So they talk about the science and what we at NIAB do, and what at the achievement of NIAB, and what kind of research goes on. For you guys, maybe in the future you might go to for MSc. So you have we have a summer training program that will be for 2 months. So National Academy of Science, which is in Bangalore. So which always every year they call for the application for this program, dissertation and all, because this National Academy of Science give the fellowship for 6 months and 2 months. So you can, if you are interested, so please go to the website of National Academy of Science, visit there and find out this program, and you can apply, and you can come to NIAB, work for 6 months and get to know what exactly at NIAB we do. This is our beautiful building from the outside, and I wanted to acknowledge my director, Dr. Narendra Hegde, Dr. HBD Prasad Rao, CIF in charge, that is the Central Instrumentation Facility in charge. He is a scientist F. His major work is in reproduction biology, and I thanks all my scientists at NIAB. Thank you for your patience and to listen me. Thanks a lot. Once again, I wanted to thanks organizing committee, all of you, for giving me an opportunity to present this talk to you. Thanks for listening me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It has been our pleasure to host all the participants of the 3-day online lecture series at late Ramesh Varpurkar Arts, Science and Commerce College, Sonpet, District Parbhani, and Kalika Devi Arts, Science and Commerce College, Shirur, Kasar, District Bid. I am sure that the participant must benefited by attending this online lecture series. On the behalf of the organizer and on my own behalf, I express a deep appreciation and thank to all speakers for deliver the expert talk in the 3-day online lecture series. I once again thank everyone whose contribution made this online lecture series as a successful event. Thank you everyone.